Sabres Live is presented by Seneca Resorts and Casinos. Nothing else comes close.
We are going to overtime.
Coming off of overtime and a shootout, unfortunately with a loss against Montreal, the Sabres are rolling into a home ice tilt with Arizona tonight, and we welcome you into the podcast and want to start by essentially extending the Hockey Fights Cancer window, which is commonly November in the NHL, but when someone from America's arguably first family of hockey and very close to the Sabres and everyone involved in it is dealing with it, man, we can't start without acknowledging our best wishes and most love and support to Tony Granato and what is now his new battle, as he announced yesterday, Marty, that he's taking on non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and starting treatment this week.
Yeah, and I mean, Tony's, as you pointed out, the brother of Don Granado, head coach of the Sabres, but a good friend of the show because we got to know that family really well. We had Cammy Granado on the podcast before, which is Don and Tony's sister. We've met Mr. and Mrs. Granado at the arena many times. And when we were in Chicago, you and I, just a few weeks back, after the game, we got back to the hotel. Tony was there. We got to talk to him for half an hour. Just a really smart person. And I'm not just saying like hockey person, just a smart person. Like when you talk to him, you just get so much information through different things, right? And it's just, it was such passionate. Yeah, passionate is the right word. Thank you. And so it is, I think it was a punch to the gut when I read that yesterday, just because I feel like Tony has the Sabres and Buffalo in such high esteem. Like he wants the Sabres to do so well and his brother to do so well that we're going to be really thinking of him a lot over the next little bit here.
And of course, his brother Don had a battle with Hodgkin's lymphoma almost 20 years ago. So this is unfortunately nothing new to the family, but at the same time, it always feels like the entire hockey world is a family in the fight. But I think in this case, like when you already know the reach that the Granado family has, you know that the support will be endless. So Tony, we're thinking of you and can't wait to see you come out victorious in this battle. There's hockey to get to here, but it's Bandits night on the broadcast, and Dane and Josh are going to be with us pregame. And I just learned that call up from the Amerks, Brett Murray, who's going to get his first NHL game in almost 2 years tonight, played for the Bandits in youth lacrosse, Caledon Bandits, before he went to the Hill Academy. And so this is
doesn't surprise me that Brett Murray would have been a lacrosse guy. Like he has that body type and that aggressive nature, and a lot of hockey players have played lacrosse, but it doesn't surprise me when it comes to Brett Murray.
So it was an interesting start to the Bandits season on Saturday. They lost in Albany, but of course last year they lost the season opener Albany as well, and then went on to win the title. So not a lot of people are overly concerned at the moment, but that game had a ton of physicality. I think the Sabres Habs game had a lot of physicality. My daughter went to a high school game the other day and she said, "Dad, like there could have been like 100 fights in this game." So I don't know whether it's the holiday season, everybody's just getting ornery or what, but it's very clear the message that has been sent from the coach and the general manager when it comes to compete and showing up in every single battle. That was obvious the other night. The problem is it doesn't guarantee wins. You still have to score goals, but are we not seeing a little bit of a shift right now in player accountability and what they have to engage in on a nightly basis to kind of maintain their place here moving forward? And maybe I'm overstating it, but I think there's a recognition here that they needed to tweak something.
There is a recognition, and we saw it in parts here and there in the first 2 months of the season, right? October, November, oh, you get a good third period. Oh, you got a good game, and then not so much the next one. And I think what we saw in the Boston game and the Montreal game is that they just were consistent in trying to keep the same effort level, the same compete level. And it worked really well against Boston. It didn't work for the first two periods against Montreal, but they didn't steer away from it. They said, let's keep going the right direction. And they took it to a shootout coming back in the third period. And that to me is the lesson to learn here, is that with compete, the results may not always be what you want, but overall, you're going to have a consistent type game and you're going to keep yourself in games because of your compete level. And compete level for different players means different things. Like compete level for Rasmus Dahlin is not the same to me as it is for Jeff Skinner or Tage Thompson or Dylan Cousins. There's different level of how you compete, how you make things work. But the biggest thing for me is that when a coach would say we have to compete, it was in two areas. You have to defend, and defend is about compete. So you have to do that. And you have to be relentless on pucks. Relentless on pucks and forechecking is about compete. Everything else, there's compete factors, there's skills factors, there's a lot of different things. But I feel like Boston and Montreal, those two areas were there. They defended and they were really good on forechecking on pucks. That's the two areas of compete.
They lost the game 3-2. They lost the shootout 3-2. It was their first shootout game of the season. Of course, the flip side, Montreal is as well versed as any team going beyond regulation time. They now have 7 wins post 60 minutes. That is even with the Maple Leafs, and those are difference makers in the standings when you just keep finding ways to pick up points. So the Sabres have to continue on a path like that right now. They're still struggling to get 2 wins back to back, so they'll try to start another streak tonight in what'll be their home game before a 3-game road trip, that goes through Colorado, Vegas, and Arizona. Of course, the Coyotes are in tonight, and Arizona's been a very pleasant surprise. They score a ton. Their power play is excellent. Vejmelka's going to be in goal. We expect Levi at the Sabres end. So they're going to have their hands full here with this Arizona team that's won 2 of the last 3 coming in. 2 of the last 3 trips to Buffalo they have won, I should say. Now, as far as the Sabres lineup, we mentioned Brett Murray coming up. Isaac Rosen's been sent back down to Rochester, so there's your switch in the lineup. Robinson, of course, will be back in after missing half the game due to a boarding major. And Alex Tuch, while skating this morning, is not going to be in the lineup just yet. He's going to need a little more practice time. The overarching storyline, if you will, Marty, is after 48 shots on goal, they still ended up with just 2.
Yep.
And you'll recall vividly last year that the team that had the identity of scoring 4 or more was actually really, really good when scoring just 3 or more. That was all they needed, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But they couldn't win to save their lives when they scored 2 or fewer. In fact, last year they ended up 22-2 when scoring 2 or fewer.
That's a lot of 2s.
Yeah. Well,
22-2 and scoring 2 or less. That's
this year
when the scoreboard looks like 2-2 with 2:22 left in the second period, and you look and you see 2s everywhere.
This year they're 0-10-2 when scoring 2 or fewer. So it has continued. Now, I get it. Obviously, we don't see nearly as many games of that low scoring variety, but when your goaltending's been good, you need to win those games. And that's where there's probably a feeling of big miss against Montreal on Saturday.
There's a feeling of big miss because you created enough to be able to get maybe that third goal, right? And get that 3-2 win, or in overtime, you have the power play for 55 seconds, 4-on-3, you had a 5-on-3 in the first period. So all of this adds to, well, you feel like you went home empty-handed. You got a point, right? And that's 2 games in a row. Now you got 2 against Boston, 1 against Montreal, but you feel like you went home empty-handed. You talk about the overarching, you got 46 saves from Primo, 48 shots on goal. Unofficial, by the way, because it keeps changing.
Oh my gosh, let me apologize for that. Like we joke about the unofficial stuff all the time, but then we fall victim to it. And then I feel like a complete ass on the day after a game because everything changed. Like I'm sitting here thinking the amount of misinformation that I spewed in the post game on Saturday because I trusted the source that was in front of me.
Well, the source is NHL.com. You're not trusting like Joe from his TV Joe that it's writing down the names.
Oh my gosh. Do you know that they had the whole overtime listed as shorthanded and power play the other night when we were on the air? That's why all the numbers were skewed. So I misrepresented the actual number of power play shots they had in the game because they listed the whole 4-on-4 overtime as special teams.
And this is why when I went to Natural Stat Trick at the end of the game, it said shots even strength in overtime were 0-0. And I'm thinking, how can that be possible? I'm like, I know that we tried to generate shots, but so I wrote it down, but I didn't mention it. I knew it was a big mistake, but no. And just again, little sidebar. When Eric Robinson took his major penalty for boarding, for the longest time, the game sheet showed Robinson minor, Caden Goalie minor, Caden Goalie match penalty on the game sheet. They gave Caden Goalie a match penalty, not Robinson. And so it's wrong all the time. And you know what? We complain about it. I talked to a lot of people around the NHL. Everybody's complaining about it. And you know what? We're December, today? The 10th, I believe, 11th. Or the 11th or whatnot. We're late December already. It's past Christmas in my mind. But anyway, it's still not fixed. Like, come on now,
and
people.
It's not a Buffalo thing. So this is not an
no, it's not a Buffalo thing. No,
every single night we're in the studio or wherever we are confronted with this issue.
It's frustrating because we rely on information to pass along. Ice time. Hey, you know what? Rasmus Dahlin played 29.5 minutes, and then we wake up the next day and it's 24:50. You're like, that 5 minutes is huge. It's a big difference. I'm like, come on now. And we have player tracking. Oh.
I don't know how, I feel like, because we're living in the moment, I feel like we're at the front edge of claiming everything to be unofficial. But I was watching a couple of broadcasts last week. I'm pretty sure LA, and the guys were mentioning unofficially. I was dying laughing. I'm like, I think maybe we're all trying to figure out now that everything we say should be just with a little hint of caution.
Okay, well, how about this one? Okay, in the last 2 games, Devon Levi has made 32 saves on 33 shots against the Boston Bruins and 31 saves on 33 shots against the Montreal Canadiens. So he's given up 3 goals and 66 shots. That's good. Now, if the NHL wants to add a couple of shots or take away a couple of shots, it doesn't change the big picture. Levi went down to Rochester, played a couple of games, got called up. Comrie had a start, didn't go too well. Levi won in Boston, played against the Montreal Canadiens, and it looks like Levi will get the start against the Arizona Coyotes. So 3 games in a row. Luukkonen is feeling healthier. He's had a couple of days of practice. Most likely will resume his crease at some point, maybe Colorado, maybe on the road trip. So you're got 3 goalies again. What do you do with the 3 goalies? Is this let's get Levi one more game before we head on the road, but we're going to have to send Levi back down to Rochester? Or is this if Levi plays well, now maybe that little stint to Rochester changes the whole thing here. And maybe it's Luukkonen and Levi for a little while and Comrie has to wait it out. Maybe there's something that happens there because they are going to need the roster spots. Tuck is coming back. You're going to have Quinn coming back soon. You got 8 defensemen, 3 goalies. Again, same conversation. But for me, against Arizona, Levi playing may dictate what happens moving forward. He makes another 32 saves on 33 shots, and all of a sudden you say, hey, wait a minute. He's given up 4 goals on 100 shots or so, in 3 games. You can't pass on that.
Right. Well, Levi's 1-0-2 in his last 4 appearances, and his save percentage over that stretch is .911, which is a very livable number based on where the team save percentage has been for quite some time. So we'll expect Levi tonight. It'll be his first go around against Arizona. The bigger story. Oh, and by the way, we had a lot of references to goats and donkeys on the broadcast on Saturday. I don't know where it's going to go tonight, but just be ready for it.
What? Are you giving me a heads up here that maybe I'll be talking about goats again? Because I don't love talking about goats. We do have to
work with Rob again, right? So
yeah, I get it. I'm trying to find a picture of Marty the goat, and I couldn't find it the other day, and I'm gonna look back because I still can't find it. I thought maybe I had it on my Instagram, but I wanted to show you, but no, can't find Marty the goat. Let's forget about him.
Oh, well, since we're on the topic, though, of the latter, or some would say the former, based on his numbers last year, happy birthday to Matthew Chuck. He's 26 years of age today. You see how he could easily be in either category?
He can be a goat or a donkey. Yeah, absolutely. That's I like, yeah. Okay. I'll take that. I won't go any farther. I don't want to. There was a lot of goats and a lot of donkeys that got supplemental discipline over the weekend. It was a rough weekend for George Peros and the Department of Player Safety.
At the barn. At the NHL.
The barn. It was a rough, but yeah. The goats and the donkeys were going after one another all weekend long. It was tough.
Do you know why I thought more that I was the latter again? Like, look who's in the lineup for Buffalo tonight, expected. We don't know for sure because Samuelsson is sore, so maybe I'm jumping the gun here. But ever since my question to you last week, has Ryan Johnson seen the last of the AHL?
Yeah, I know.
Now he doesn't even play. So I'm like, what kind of person am I to bring up that question and then he gets scratched?
He gets scratched. There's two reasons for that. One, Dahlin came back, right? Missed the game in Boston, but came back against Montreal. So, but Connor Clifton, for the struggle that he has had at the start of the season, I think he's played his best 2 games in the Sabres uniform against Boston and Montreal. And the second goal that against Montreal, the Calaposo goal, was all Connor Clifton. Tage Thompson goal against Boston was a good play by Clifton. There's been better plays. So now you say, okay, the guy gets in the rhythm. You're going to give him that spot. I did like Samuelsson and Power together again against the Montreal Canadiens. I think that's maybe something that you got to explore more. If Sammy is healthy to play again, we'll know game time decision with Samuelsson tonight.
So I guess really the only area, let me do this first, and you can help read along with me. But when you're serious about the game, bet on Buffalo at the only sports books in Western New York, Seneca Resorts and Casinos. Betting counters are open daily. Self-serving betting kiosks are available 24/7. That's all 3 locations: Seneca, Niagara, Allegheny, or Buffalo Creek. And the sports lounge, of course, features the latest lines, multiple screens, so you never miss a play. The sports book at Seneca Resorts and Casinos, where the love of the game meets the thrill of the win. This all ties into over/under, and Buffalo needs to get back to being an over team. How do they get the offense going, Marty? Because you can cherry pick in any storyline you want and focus on this player is the catalyst or the reason. And like, I look at this whole group and I can't, I'm partially in disbelief that Dylan Cousins has 1 goal in his last 18 games. But like Zach Benson, after a multi-point game, has pointless in 5. But like, he's all around it. And the funny thing is like Peterka's on the line, but he kind of consistently is producing here, right? So it doesn't
by himself a lot.
And then you go through the bottom 6 beyond that, and it's like, you know, the way it's configured at the moment, it's hard to say you're going to rely on somebody stepping up. Obviously, Olofsson has been the most consistent in that regard. He's got 10 points in his last 13 games.
So how do you create more offense? I'll tell you, the power play's got to start like putting pucks in the back of the net. It would have gotten you an extra point against Montreal.
What do you want to see? What drastic measure can they take?
They've got 2 goals in the last 7 games on the power play, and that's a 2-for-5 effort against Detroit, right? That is
in arguably garbage time because they were down 4-0.
Yes, exactly. So, but the other games is 0-4 ever, right? And that's the problem. Now, last game against Montreal, they did something that I felt, and I pointed out on the telestration, they changed their setup a little bit. They, instead of going 1-3-1, as most teams, 2 one-timers on the side, a bumper and a net front with the point guy, they went more on an umbrella. So they have the 3 guys up high, but they're looking for that pass on the goal line, which was Benson on the one side with Skinner on the other side. And I felt like it worked. Here's the issue. There was the 5-on-3. Well, the 5-on-3, you're not going to use the umbrella and the overload. So their setup change. It took away all their rhythm on the power play. And the 4-on-3 is the same thing. 4-on-3 is away from that structure that you work on. You don't work 4-on-3. You don't work 5-on-3 a whole lot. I thought 5-on-4 was their better look. So yes, the power play has not produced of late. And yes, against Montreal was a huge part of why they didn't get the extra point or even a regulation win. But 5-on-4, I feel like they're going the right direction. I've mentioned it many times. If the 1-3-1's not working, you got to go to a different setup. Maybe you use 2 defensemen and you put them on opposite ends of the blue line and you use a 3-on-2 down low. And you say, once the forwards on the other team, the penalty killers, are going to pressure up the top, we're sending it down low for 3-on-2. You got to create odd man situations somewhere on the ice. And with the overload umbrella, I feel like it worked to that a little bit. So I want to give him a little bit more time, but it definitely has to produce on the man advantage.
Yes, they have had 4 minutes and 26 seconds of 5-on-3 time on ice this year. They are 0 for 5 on the power play in those situations. And that is
Can you imagine you're given a full, let's see, 2 guys on the other team take major penalties. You get a full 5 minutes of 5-on-3 and you don't score. Now, I know it's not like that because you get 30 seconds here, 50 seconds there, but they've had extended time on the 5-on-3 this year, which they've not been able to produce.
Right. And they are among the league leaders in actually being given that amount of time on ice at 5-on-3. So it just makes the reality of it a little harder to bear. Is there one other thing? Because we have a lot on the go. We got to get ready for pregame tonight. So one other topic, Sabres or otherwise, that you wanted to end with here today?
Sabres or otherwise. Well, let's touch quickly on the Arizona Coyotes.
Okay.
And people may, despite the fact that Arizona is a great story, they're still just a second wildcard team right now, and they're in a battle.
That's huge, though. Nobody anticipates.
It's huge, but I feel like
yeah.
I've paid attention. You have, Duffer, about Arizona in the last month, and I feel like they had more success in the last month than what is actually shown on the standings, right? Like the season started a little slower for them, and they went out to Australia in preseason and played against the LA Kings. Well, it didn't slow down the Kings, right, for their travel back and everything. Arizona took their time getting going, but they are a quick team. They are fast. You know what the 2 fastest team in the NHL are out west right now in the Western Conference, in my opinion, at this moment? I'm not talking overall, but at this moment, I think Arizona is one of them. They're really quick and they execute quick. The San Jose Sharks right now, they are fast, and they've come back in 3 straight games. They scored 4 goals, 6-on-5 with the goalie pulled in the last 3 games. They almost pulled a trick against the Vegas Golden Knights last night on Sunday night. Like, San Jose is playing quick and fast, and that's why we keep talking about pace, and that's where I want the Sabres to get. Despite the fact San Jose is probably the worst team in the league right now, they play with pace and they're fast, and I enjoy watching them.
Well, they're certainly not the worst ever since, if you just get rid of the first 11 games. They've been dynamic, and they pushed again last night to get it even, and then had their chance in overtime and shootout before losing to Vegas.
Dominated the overtime.
Yeah, they are absolutely flying. It's impressive to watch. But yeah, I can't disagree. I think Arizona right now, like, the beauty for them is they will see flashes throughout the year of Logan Cooley and salivate over what his future will be.
Yeah.
But he's not the catalyst for what's happening on a nightly basis right now, which is really good for them because they're getting, Clayton Keller's consistency as a star player in this league. Lawson Krause is trending towards becoming a 30-goal scorer potentially on an annual basis. You have Michael Carcone, who's just unbelievably fortunate right now, but it never stops.
Cy Young leader. He's 13-3.
13-3 is leading the league in shooting percentage. You have a rookie that went way under the radar last year that was all about playmaking in Michelli, who's right there among the team leaders again this year. You didn't even mention
Nick Schmaltz yet.
Well, you don't have to, because he's just kind of there, right? Like, he's in it, and he, I don't know. I mean, it's just, it doesn't, none of this blabbering ensures anything. And you're right. Like, eventually Edmonton is going to leap over both wildcard teams currently in the Western Conference, and maybe somebody else does too. So, there's certainly no guarantees that they're going to make it, but I think their outlook is great. And my only question is, what color shirt will their coach wear tonight?
White. It's going to be white. It's going to be because it's going to be a white shirt today.
He's worn more white than he used to lately, and I think he's reaping the benefits of it as Andre Tourigny. So keep an eye out.
I have a quick question for you, Duffer, though, before we have to log off here and get on with the rest of the day and prepare for tonight's game. Nikita Kucherov is 7 points ahead of JT Miller for the points total lead right now. He's sitting at 47 and JT Miller's at 40. Connor McDavid is at 36, 11 points behind Kucherov. How many points will McDavid be ahead of Kucherov at the end of the regular season?
He'll be ahead by 11 at the end of January.
I said the same thing
then
today.
I don't know what the rest of the year is going to be.
I said it feels to me like it's Mario Lemieux coming back from his cancer treatment that he's going to catch Patty LaFontaine. It's just a matter of time. And I feel like by the All-Star break, McDavid is going to be ahead of Kucherov and everybody else.
Yeah, I would think so. I don't have much doubt about that. The question is how long does Sam Reinhart stay in the hunt for the Art Ross?
Until Connor McDavid gets by the All-Star break and is like leading, and his team is top 2 in their division, because they'll find their way back there again.
Well, you had an Australia reference in there for the Yotes, so let's go with goats, donkeys, and kangaroos, all part of this episode of Sabres Live Overtime. We'll see you soon.